As most of you know by this point, I have switched my main from Hillbilly to Vecna, and I have been playing him exhaustively over the past basically week or two or so, give or take. I have been playing with every single add-on, attempting to make sure that I try them all out as much as I possibly can. I've tried so many various different builds, and in the future there will be even more experimenting. I'm a very firm believer that there is never a cap to improvement. There is never going to be a point where you can stop getting better at it, whatever it is you're trying to do. So I will always be looking into new ways to use Vecna and new things to try and new ways to experiment. And if people have any ideas, if there are things that you think that I should try out on Vecna, especially where add-ons are concerned, then please let me know what add-ons you think work with which perks, and I'll be sure to give them a try if I haven't already, or I might try them again to see if there was something that I missed. But today, we're going to be taking a look at all of 20 of Vecna's add-ons and ranking each of them. I'll also be explaining each of them in detail so that you know what they all do and why I came to my decision. So sit back, relax, and pull up a chair, I guess. This is a largely auditory experience, but I do have the tier list on the screen for you now, so if you ever want to take a glance over and find out what I think about each add-on individually, then you can go ahead and do that. That's up to you, but you don't have to watch the video, you just gotta listen. So, first up, we have the Crystal Ball add-on. This increases the duration of the Killer Instinct after a survivor is revealed by your Dispelling Sphere for 3 seconds. So the thing that you gotta remember about Killer Instinct is that Killer Instinct pulses every, I think it's 1.5 seconds. So when it says that it increases the duration by 3 seconds, that means that you only really get 2 additional pulses. And that's not exactly what you're looking for when you're trying to use the Dispelling Sphere, because at the end of the day, Dispelling Sphere in most of the playstyles that you use it is always just going to be to let you know where a survivor is, not necessarily to track them. However, what stops Crystal Ball from being in the F tier, in my opinion, is that there is some like very niche case uses where you can use Dispelling Sphere in the middle of a chase in order to track a survivor through whichever loop they're going. If I were to give this a different effect, I would probably give it something like either making the sphere better so it could be comboed with the glass eye, which we'll get to in a little bit, or I would probably give it like some sort of, I think it'd be kind of cool if you cause like blindness for like 15 seconds or something. I don't know, just something like that. I don't think that increasing the duration of Killer Instinct really matters all that much, and I know it's a brown add-on, but just because something's brown doesn't mean it's got to be useless. Next up, we have the Raven's Feather, which extends the duration of the flight spell by 0.5 seconds. This is not really long enough to matter all of that much, but I will still put it in the C tier because it can add a little bit of additional movement, basically, right? You want to get from one point of the map to the other, or a very common way to use fly is to hit the survivor, use fly to catch up to them so that you kind of negate their distance. Fly at its base kit takes you about 28-ish meters, so this will bring you to about 30 meters or so, give or take, 30, 31, something in that area. So it's not exactly a large amount of extra distance you're gaining, but it can still be useful. I would put it in the average. This is definitely something that I think newer players might kind of latch onto if they favor the fly spell, so definitely think this is great. Next up is the Tattered Headband. I know you've all seen the Yachts Darva video by this point, and I love him, but I don't give a fuck, okay? The Tattered Headband is shit. That playstyle that Otz was showing you seems like a cool thing to do, but after trying it for like, I would say like, I tried it for like 15 games, it's nothing but a meme playstyle, guys. It's really not that great. Yes, you can theoretically combine it with the Iridescent Tome in order to snipe survivors if you know where they are, but it has such this weird niche use case that honestly, I can't put the Tattered Headband any higher than F tier. It's just a useless fucking add-on, guys. An extra 4 meters to your Flight of the Damned is just not going to do anything, right? So I should probably explain what it does. Whenever you cast Flight of the Damned, it makes the skeletons travel 4 meters further, and it's just not that useful. They already travel 12 meters, I believe. I will have to look back into that. So this brings them to 16 meters, which is a pretty significant distance, right? That is almost as long as a Deathslinger's harpoon gun. So it's a pretty significant distance, I will admit, and that is cool and all, but I just don't believe that it's actually necessary, right? Because most of the time when you're using Flight of the Damned, you're either using it in elevation tech, in which case they're not going to be further than like 10 meters away from you, or you're using it for an insta-tech, in which case the extra range doesn't matter. I would never equip the Tattered Headband outside of that niche playstyle, and even then I really wouldn't use it, because in order to do that niche playstyle that Otstarva described, where you use it to snipe people from far away, it requires you to unbreak a lot of habits that I think are good habits to have on Vecna, and I'm just not a big fan. Next up, we have the Trickster's Gloves. Increases the time and an upright pallet is held in place by a mage hand for 0.5 seconds. We're going to be putting this in the average above the Raven's Feather. So the mainstay use of this is to get an additional kind of extra small time to catch up to a survivor. A lot of times when you use the mage hand to hold a pallet, it's not that great, because if the survivor just keeps holding W around the loop, they're more than likely just going to make it back to the pallet as the mage hand is going away. So this gives you just an extra tiny little bit of wiggle room to work with, and it does combo well with the Elven Boots, which we will get to later. So it's not necessarily a bad add-on, it's just average, but it does need to be combined with other stuff regarding Mage Hand so that you can kind of get a lot more use out of it, and I just really think that it's not bad, right? This is a really good beginner add-on, but eventually you're going to graduate to more stuff, and you're also going to learn that holding the pallets is nowhere near as strong as lifting the pallets. Next up, we have the Glass Eye, which increases the radius of the Dispelling Sphere by 2 meters, which is a lot bigger than you think it is, because it's not just making it wider, and it's not just making it taller, it's literally taking the entire circumference of the orb and growing it 2 meters, which is insane. And then it also increases the movement speed of the Dispelling Sphere by 10%. So this is great for gathering info. I used to think that this add-on was only good when combined with the Vorpal Sword add-on. The Vorpal Sword has a secondary effect that we'll get into a lot more later, where if you cast the Dispelling Sphere over a survivor who's injured, they'll scream and become broken. So that used to be the only case that I found for the Glass Eye. However, because of the way you use the Glass Eye, which is basically to check 2 places at once, right? So the way you would normally cast Dispelling Sphere is, let's say you down a survivor, you hook the survivor. So you turn around and there's a line of like 3 gens to your right, and then there's 2 more gens over to your left, but they're kind of like zigzagged. You would take the Dispelling Sphere, cast it to your right to where it's lined up with those 3 gens, and then you would go to your left and go check the other 2 generators with your actual body, right? So the Dispelling Sphere is kind of like a second AI that you use to scout out certain areas. The Glass Eye is great for that scenario because it goes faster over those 3 gens, meaning that you clear that area a little bit faster. One of the biggest mistakes that I see with newer killer players is not understanding how absolutely powerful information is, and Dispelling Sphere is highly underrated for that fact. So I think that the Glass Eye is a really good add-on, one that you could probably equip if you don't really have a lot of add-ons on Vecna, and get a lot of use out of it if you understand how powerful information can be and how just absolutely amazing this add-on is for scouting large portions of the map in rapid succession. Next up, we have the Lantern of Revealing. The auras of survivors narrowly missed by the flying entities summoned by Flight of the Damned spell are revealed to you for 3 seconds. This is not that bad, but I'm gonna have to put this in the average section of the tier list because at the end of the day, you shouldn't be missing your Flight of the Dams. You're going to miss your Flight of the Dams, but you shouldn't be missing your Flight of the Dams. Now, this add-on can work with combines with other ones. I've actually just thought about it. You could probably combine it with the Tattered Headband to get like a weird scouting off when you don't have your Dispelling Sphere available to you, although I don't recommend wasting your Flight of the Damned for scouting. But I've also ended up combining it with the Ornate Horn, which we'll get to in a little bit, to increase the number of skeletons so that you do get a lot more information. I think that if this add-on didn't say miss, I think that if it was just like if a survivor comes near of the Flight of the Dam, so if they get hit, you still get that aura reading, kind of like the glass lens for Pinhead or the glowing concoction for Huntress, right? You land a hit with your Flight of the Damned, you get aura reading on the survivor, they take off running somewhere and you can follow their direction and, you know, cut them off or something like that. I think that making people narrowly miss with the Flight of the Damned is a little bit too what's the word that I'm looking for? It's a little bit too restrictive. Now, I do believe that you can still get aura reading if you insta-tech them with the Flight of the Damned, because all the skeletons spawn relatively close together. But I still am doing a lot more testing on that. But yeah, I just think that this add-on would go from average to good if it just, regardless of whether or not it... Next up is the Potion of Speed. Reduces the interaction cooldown time after casting the Fly spell by 0.35 seconds. This is kind of ass. It's supposed to be in-game, it says 0.5 seconds. However, it is currently bugged to be 0.35 seconds, and that's kind of one of the biggest issues with it right now, is that the 0.5 seconds is necessary. Flight of the Damned has a fatigue window when it's ending, right? So whether you manually cancel it or you fly over a pallet or a window, there's this fatigue window where you kind of like slowly fall to the ground, and then once you hit the ground, you gotta wait until you can swing or break or whatever. And so this is meant to reduce that time frame. The problem with it is that the time frame that it reduces it by is simply not enough. Now, once it gets fixed and becomes 0.5 seconds, that's going to be a lot better for us, and I'll do some testing once that problem is solved, but for right now it is still bugged to be 0.35, and so it's going to go below the Trickster's Glove in the average category. Next up is the first of two S tier add-ons. This is the Ring of Spell Storing. Permanently reduces the cooldown timer on all spells by 2 seconds. Doesn't seem like a lot, but when you think about the fact that Vecna's entire playstyle focuses around cycling your spells in and out, in and out, in and out, right? You use Flight of the Damned for one hit, then you use Mage Hand for the down, then you hook them, then you turn around, you use Dispelling Sphere for the info, you use Fly to get to the next person. By the time you're getting to the next person with Fly, your Flight of the Damned should be coming off of cooldown, and by the time you're about to use it, your Mage Hand should be coming off of cooldown, etc, etc, etc. You're basically supposed to be in this endless loop, and anything that makes that endless loop of cycling your spells easier and more effective is going to be your strongest tool. So that 2 seconds doesn't seem like a lot, but it brings your Dispelling Sphere down from 25 seconds to 23 seconds. It brings your Fly and your Flight of the Damned down from 35 seconds to 33 seconds, and it brings your Mage Hand down from 40 seconds to 38 seconds. All of those added together make up. Basically, don't think of this as saving only 2 seconds on each of your spells. Think of it as saving 8 seconds in total every single time you use a cycle, right? So it saves you 8 seconds for every cycle. Let's say that every cycle gets you about 3 health states. You need 24 divided by 3 is 8. So let's say 8 cycles. So you'd be saving a little over 64 seconds every single match, right? And that is, again, it doesn't seem like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, it is very powerful, it is very constructive, it is very, very good. Next up is the Ring of Telekinesis, which is our second add-on that goes into the F tier. This is one of the most infuriating add-ons in Vecna's kit. So what this used to do is it used to increase your pickup speed with your mage hand for the pallet, but now what it does is whenever you use the mage hand on an upright pallet, not even to pick up the pallet, just on an upright pallet, your vaulting speed is increased by 10% for 8 seconds. This is fucking worthless. It is absolutely worthless. It's one of the worst things in any killer. For any killer, it's so bad, so absolutely terrible. You're never going to use this add-on, right? The scenarios in which this add-on might come in handy are so few and far between that they might as well be zero, right? Like maybe you hold God Pallet at Shack with the Trickster gloves and the Ring of Telekinesis, and then they vault window and you vault Shack window after them and you catch them just before the mage hand goes away. Maybe that's a scenario you might get. Possibly, probably not, right? It is legitimately just not good. It's not a good thing to use. It's just never use this add-on, right? If you see the Ring of Telekinesis in the Blood Web, skip it every time. Fuck this add-on. It's so bad. It needs an entirely new effect. There is no buff to this add-on that can make it better. It needs an entirely new effect. I would probably give it something like whenever you lift or hold a pallet with Mage Hand, exhaust the survivor or something like that. Then again, we already have an exhaustion add-on, so I don't know what I would do. You could probably like give me a little bit and I'll come back with another video on Ring of Telekinesis specifically. If you guys want to see that, let me know in the comments down below. But yeah, Ring of Telekinesis, absolutely terrible. Can't stand it. Moving on to the green add-ons. First, we have the Boots of Speed, which I mistakenly called the Elven Boots earlier. The Mage Hand spell grants a 5% haste status effect to you for 2 seconds whenever you use it. This is going to go in the A tier. So if you guys aren't aware, there is a magic item that the survivors can find that whenever you use Mage Hand, they gain 5% haste for 3 seconds. So what these boots essentially do is cancel out that item where they only have 1 extra second of that additional speed over you, right? But if they don't have that add-on, then you're moving at 120% for 2 seconds, which helps you cut them off a lot faster. Remember what I was talking about earlier about holding a pallet versus lifting it, where if you hold a pallet, then it's not exactly that great because the survivor can make that time and make it back around. This basically helps you do the same thing that the Trickster gloves do, but way better. It gives you that additional speed. Another thing about this, which is really cool, is that if you combine it with the Vorpal sword, which allows you to break pallets with the Mage Hand, then you can cast it on a pallet that they dropped and you walked around, and it just helps you catch up while that pallet is being broken. It's just a beautiful add-on. I highly underestimated this the first time I played Vecna. It's a fun add-on, a really good one. I highly recommend it. It's good combined with the Trickster gloves, combined with the Vorpal sword. It's just a really good add-on, and just in general, I really like it, and I think you should consider it. Next up, we have the Cloak of Elvenkind. That's where the elf came from. Whenever you are in flight, while you're in flight, your terror radius is reduced for 8 meters. This is not a bad add-on, and I wouldn't even say it's average. It's weaker than it seems because you bring your terror radius down from 32 to 24 meters while you're flying, so it helps you be a little bit stealthy. I just think that it could probably be something like maybe a 10-second linger, and I think it would be still fine and a lot better, but it is still relatively cool. I actually thought that it would be cool if you were just straight up undetectable while flying and then they don't have a linger effect, because then, much like the boots that we just talked about, it would be a counter to the add-on, to the magic item that survivors can find, which allows them to see your aura whenever you are flying, which is what makes this add-on just good and not in the A tier, is that it doesn't counter the magic item that is used for fly, and so it can be a little bit more difficult to utilize if someone has the fly add-on, because they can literally see you coming. Doesn't matter if your terror radius is reduced. I think that if it made you undetectable while you were flying, it would be a lot better and it'd be a lot cooler, and you could probably get some like kooky stuff and like combining it with the Raven Feather and then getting some kooky jump scares out of it. But I do think it is good. I don't think it's, oh my god, amazing. If you guys need a refresher course, I know we're halfway through the video at this point, but if you guys need a refresher course on how I do tiers, S means that it is the best of the best of the best of the best. You can't live without it. A means that it's really, really good. B means that it's just normally good. C is average. D is below average. And F is fucking worthless. Don't ever use this. That's how I do tier lists. Next up is the Ornate Horn, which increases the number of skeletons by 1. This is not that great. I'm not going to lie to you. It throws off your aim if you're used to aiming with the skeletons because it takes away the center mass. This could honestly increase the skeletons by 2 in order to bring back the center, and it still wouldn't be overtly powerful. I put it as an average add-on because it isn't necessarily bad, but it isn't really good either. I don't particularly like how it changes the Flight of the Damned skeletons into this kind of off-center thing, and it just throws a lot of people off. So it's not bad at all, but it's not necessarily good, so I'm just going to put it in the average. Next up is our second S tier add-on, the Pearl of Power. Whenever you hit a survivor with a basic attack, you reduce the cooldown of all of the spells that are currently on cooldown by 3 seconds. So you remember earlier when we were talking about how the Ring of Spell Storing saves you 8 seconds per cycle or 8 seconds per 3 health states? This one does pretty much the same thing, right? Except instead of 8, it saves you 12 per cycle, because every time you land a basic attack, all of your spells that are on cooldown will be reduced by 3 seconds. And if you do it again, right, so you go bam and then bam and hit them twice, then it reduces all of them by 6 seconds. This is just a really powerful, I actually think it's better than the Ring of Spell Storing. This is probably his most powerful add-on overall. If you're leveling up Vecna, you need to take the Pearl of Power every single time so that you can consistently, and I do mean consistently, get your spells back over and over and over again, because your only other way to damage survivors is going to be your Flight of the Damned. So you're going to be M1ing a lot more than you think you are. I'm actually working on a video about Vecna and M1 perks. I remember when I released a build showcase a while back, somebody was like, I don't like Sloppy Butcher on Vecna because about a third of your hits are Flight of the Damned. It really doesn't matter. You M1 on Vecna a lot more than you think you do. So this is just an exceptional add-on, just amazing through and through. If you like, I want the best add-ons to run on Vecna so I can run them every game, it will be the Pearl of Power and the Ring of Spell Storing every time without fail. This is the best combo for Vecna. These are the best add-ons for Vecna. They work in tandem with each other. Just fucking phenomenal. Next up is the Staff of Withering. Whenever a survivor is hit with a Dispelling Sphere, they suffer from exhaustion for 20 seconds, which is a substantial amount of time. The only real problem with this add-on is that you're typically not using Dispelling Sphere in Chase. That's why I put this as an average add-on, because you're typically not using it in Chase. However, whenever you do use it as a scouting tool, if they are close enough, this can give you enough time. Like, let's say you'd use it and they're about, say, 25 meters away. You fly over to them, they're still going to be exhausted when you get to them. So this can prevent things like Sprint Burst and Lithe and Overcome and Dead Hard, right? All of these really annoying perks. So I don't actually, you know what? I think I will put it good. I'll put it at the bottom of the good tier, because it is a good add-on. I just think that oftentimes you're going to find yourself not really utilizing it as much as you could, because you're not using Dispelling Sphere in Chase, and you're not using it to initiate a chase either, which means Sprint Burst is still kind of a pain in the ass. Next up is the Bag of Holding. 2 chests in the trial are guaranteed to be mimics, and whenever a survivor is opening up a treasure chest, they are oblivious for 15 minutes. 15 minutes? It is, I'm doing this video at 2 o'clock in the morning. They're oblivious for 15 seconds when they're opening a treasure chest. So this can be a pretty funny add-on. I would say that it's good. But it's not one that I think that you should be bringing very often. I mean, not only is it a purple, but it just doesn't do as much as you would like it to do. I do like the guaranteed mimic part of it. It seems like that would just be a haha funny, but it actually slows survivors down when they're trying to look for magic items in order to counter your abilities. So that's what makes it good. The Oblivious is okay, but it's not really like as good as the guaranteed mimics, you know, shutting down survivors, stopping them from finding magic items as quickly as you possibly can is amazing. Also, whenever a survivor gets trapped by a mimic, it gives you additional info. And then there's, on top of that, if they miss a skill check from the mimic, then they get injured, which is additional pressure for you. So just guaranteeing the mimics by themselves is absolutely fucking phenomenal. It's just not quite good enough to be A tier in my opinion. Next up is the Cloak of Invisibility. Whenever all of your spells are on cooldown, you become undetectable for 10 seconds. This is garbage, absolute trash. The only thing that stops it from going into the F tier is that you might get all your spells off cooldown every so often. But 10 seconds of undetectable is just absolutely fucking useless. It is completely and utterly worthless. If it was like 25 seconds of undetectable once all your spells are off cooldown, then it might be okay. But generally speaking, all your spells should not be on cooldown at the exact same time. If all your spells are on cooldown at the exact same time, you're probably using Vecna wrong. And so this basically rewards bad Vecna gameplay for not enough reward, right? It's not like you put all your spells on cooldown and then you're like 30 or 35 seconds of undetectable, right? Which would be highly rewarding for you if you're playing Vecna incorrectly. But it rewards you, and then it doesn't reward you enough for playing Vecna badly, and that's why I really don't like this add-on for good Vecna players. I don't like it for new Vecna players because it teaches them bad habits. I just don't like it overall. I think it's a pretty trash add-on. I would keep its undetectable effect, but find some other way to incorporate it. But yeah, in general, I don't like it. Next up is the Dragon Tooth Dagger. Dragon Tooth Dagger is Sloppy Butcher the add-on. It inflicts hemorrhage and mangled whenever you hit a survivor with a basic attack while they have a magic item. The thing that I really don't like about this is that they're required to have a magic item. Not all survivors are going to be looking for magic items. Not all survivors are going to be rolling magic items. So while it isn't necessarily a bad add-on, I have to put it at the top of average because honestly, you're just better off running Sloppy Butcher over this, right? Like, if this was like anytime you hit a survivor within 15 seconds of casting a spell, it inflicted the Sloppy, then it would be good, right? Because then you could use the Violent Caster blood point score in order to make sure that you're doing that, but also you're going to be doing that a lot more consistently, right? So I think that if they maybe reduced the sloppy effect from 45 seconds to 40 seconds and then made it to where if you hit a survivor within 15 seconds of casting a spell, it does that effect, this would be a lot better. I would honestly put it in the A tier if that's what it did, but because it relies on them having a magic item, because it's just a slower version of sloppy, and on top of that, I just don't really particularly like it. I find it entirely too inconsistent. I have had many matches where it just didn't really seem to make a difference, and so I don't particularly like it. Next up is the Robe of Eyes. The aura of survivors within 8 meters of a treasure chest are revealed to you for 3 seconds after casting a spell. This is a very interesting add-on. There's not a lot of treasure chests around the map, and so on larger maps this doesn't really do all that much. I have found some very niche uses with it in like ore reading builds, so like if I'm running like Lethal Pursuer, Floods of Rage, you know, Predator, stuff like that, then it can slot kind of nicely into the add-on slots. But outside of that, it just generally doesn't get that much uses because you're not guaranteed that the survivors are going to be that close to the chest. I think that it should be like either 10 or 12 meters because that way it could get a lot more uses on larger maps. But I have found some pretty decent uses for it, and I would be willing to put it in B tier in the, you know, good add-ons, just at the very bottom, very close to being in the average tier, but it is consistent enough that I've gotten the aura that I do think it's pretty good. Next up, we're getting to the iridescent add-ons. So first we've got the iridescent Book of Vile Darkness, or it's more commonly known, the iridescent tome. So this affects your fly spell and your Flight of the Damned. If you are flying over a window, it blocks that window for 45 seconds. And if you are using Flight of the Damned, it lowers the elevation of the Flight of the Damned and then reduces your skeletons down to 2 so that you can more consistently guarantee hits. At least that's what they tell you. The problem with the iridescent tome is actually in the Flight of the Damned effect. Lowering the elevations of the skeletons, great. Bringing the skeletons down to 2, not great. You're going to be missing a lot more because you don't have as much of a wide angle to cast the insta-tech onto survivors. And also, if you're like me and you're used to doing the elevation tech, you're going to miss a lot more. So this is one of those add-ons that forces you to break a lot of habits that good Vecna players should have, simply because of the way it works. I personally do not like the iridescent tome. However, I will say that the addition to the fly spell is good enough that I'm willing to put it in the middle of the B tier, but I just don't think that the effect of Flight of the Damned is always necessarily worth sacrificing for the fly effect, if that makes any sense. And I really hate how this has to be slotted into very specific builds, like, for example, a bamboozle build. You fly over one window on a TL wall, and then you bamboozle the other window, and it makes that tile completely unplayable for the survivors, is one major way to put it. I just think overall the iridescent tome is just not good enough to justify the heavy nerf that it gives to your Flight of the Damned spell, because good Vecna players, or even decent Vecna players, do not need that lower elevation. It seems like a great idea on the surface, and newer Vecna players are probably going to become very attached to it because they don't quite yet know how to use Flight of the Damned while it has its higher elevation. So they're going to be like really grasping onto that lower elevation, but the sacrificing of 2 skeletons is just not good. I think that if it sacrificed 1 skeleton, it might be worth something, but I just don't think that it's good enough to justify. Finally, we have the Vorpal Sword add-on. This makes it to where your mage hand will break pallets over the course of 3.2 seconds instead of lifting them, and whenever you cast Dispelling Sphere over an injured survivor, they scream and become broken for 20 seconds. Good effects all around. I put the Vorpal Sword in the A tier. While lifting pallets is specifically the better option over breaking them, there are still some niche uses that you can use them, and like I've said earlier in this video, you can combine the Vorpal Sword add-on with the Glass Eye to ensure that you're breaking survivors consistently. You can combine it with the speed boots that allow you to break a pallet and gain haste to catch up to a survivor who's running away. The breaking pallet is also useful for just kind of cleaning up the area, right? If a survivor drops a safe pallet, you can break that pallet to make it completely unplayable, so they'll be forced to leave the loop, which can put them in a very bad or precarious position, so you can chase after them. It's just all around, it's a much better iridescent add-on than I think the iridescent tome is, and I really do like it. I absolutely love the Vorpal Sword. You can slot it into multiple different builds and it'll work out fine. You don't even have to build around it. You can just use it as is, and it can still be a pretty consistently good add-on. So yeah. At the end of the day, if you want to now look at your screen, I do have the full tier list up. This is how I, as a Vecna main, feel about all of these Vecna add-ons. I am willing to hear different arguments to the ones that I've presented to you today, but overall, this is just how I feel. This is my personal opinion, and I will also be taking suggestions on what I can do to maybe see the true power of some of these add-ons, so let me know down below. And as always, a great big special thank you to my channel members listed on screen now. If you want to find out how to become a channel member today, get awesome perks like seeing videos early, first discount codes, and more, then please click that join button down below. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one.